Hello, my name is Luke, and over the past 8 years, I've developed and overseen more than 200 Shopify web projects, from small theme tweaks to fully custom builds for 8 and 9-figure brands. And after doing that for a while, you know some patterns. You know some things that there are certain truths that no one really talks about. So this video, I'm going to share about 8 hard-earned lessons that will completely shift the way you think about building or redesigning your Shopify store. You know, whether you're just getting started or scaling to the next level. These insights will help you set the right expectations and avoid costly mistakes, and also just avoid like a bad mindset or bad approach to the project at hand. So first and foremost, I would say this is like rule number 1 for everything, is that every single project that we take on is a lot more complex than it looks at face value. And that includes how the client or prospect sees it. It also includes how we see it as well. You know, something as simple as like, hey, I just want to add some color swatches on my store. How hard could that really be? It only take you a few hours. But really, when it comes down to it, you know, making changes on a given website, there are certain things that actually impact other things. Therefore, you can't just make the change. So as an example, basically, if we can move into that really quick. Okay, I just want to add a swatch on my website. Okay, cool. So like, yeah, we need to build some swatches. Okay, well, wait, what should the swatches show, or what should they be like, right? Should it show a color? Should it show an image? Okay, if we want an image, well, what image should it show by product, right? So we have to develop a system for, this is like basic gray is what this is stands for. Well then, okay, what should it look like? Okay, we want to use these images. Well then on the back end of Shopify, now you got to figure out where to store the image and then how to correlate it with the actual product and the actual thing you're actually buying. So as you can see, just something as simple as that it gets a little complicated, even just deciding on what we need to put in this little box here. Not to mention what should happen when I click these buttons. Well, it should change. On the left-hand side, it should still show the product. Oh, also, I don't want to show all my swatches because, well, that's a little overwhelming. So we need to hide them and only show like a select few. Okay, well, which ones do we show? Well, okay, I only want to show these swatches on this product. I want to show a different set of swatches on another product. It's like, okay, all of a sudden we just literally said, hey, when we first started this conversation, we just said, hey, we want to display swatches on our product page. But then as the project evolved and as things progressed, it's like, well, no, but okay, for this product, we want to do X as an example. And so you can see where something super simple, so basic, all of a sudden gets very, very complex. Here's like another example. Let's take another one here. So if I go to shop, energy, this example is, hey, I just would like to show things in a certain way on a product page. This is a completely custom product page. We kind of knew walking in, this was not going to be a super simple project. And also you can see the font. Okay, I want to show this cool font like depiction, right? And it's like, well, okay, which word should we show in this font versus another font? We have to make those determinations to understand how to show something. Hey, how many servings should it be? Oh, wait. Okay, I think we need something on the back end. Okay, what text should we show here? I think we need to code something else on the back end. So you can kind of see how something so simple, at least at face value, all of a sudden we have to take all these things into account in order to make proper decisions and make sure that like this can scale across the rest of the website. The other thing we did on this website was also like showing these different flavors. What's interesting about this is, like, generally speaking, these would be variants on a product, which is just variations of the same product. And so basically, normally you just put that on a single product, but in this case, they wanted to show all these individual flavors. So instead of basically putting all the variations on a single product, we created separate products and then we basically tied them together on the back end. So again, something that like face value, I feel like, yeah, we just want to show our product and then some other flavors. Yeah, face value seems super simple, but then as you start digging and you start moving things along, that's where things get a little bit more complicated than we ever expect. Basically, on top of that, this would be lesson number 2. Due to this fact, due to everything that I just had talked about, things are going to take longer than we expect. So I like to say when we're estimating things, I'm like, hey, if everything goes perfectly, it's 4 to 6 weeks. But I'm like, hey, knowing that we're going to have some back and forth, we're going to change our mind, we're going to have revisions and decisions throughout the whole project, you know, generally that extends the timeline by like 1.5x. So like instead of 4 to 6, it's probably more like, what would that be? 6 to 8. And even then I'd probably say 8 to 10. That's just how things go and how things progress on these projects, because again, all these different sort of decision points, and as we're going through the project, we kind of have to have connection points with the client. Hey, does that make sense? Does that work for you? Is that something? So wait, is it always 30 servings? Is it something else, right? Having these sorts of conversations to understand, hey, can we just hard code this, or should we make it dynamic? Oh yeah, we should make it dynamic. We have other products that have different serving sizes, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So because everything is more complex than we expect, you know, there are certain projects that go super, super fast, super swimmingly, but really, if you want a really good product at the end of the day and a really good website, then you actually need to think through all those different things that you're thinking of as a business owner. You also have to think through the psychology of your customer. And basically, it should take a little bit longer because you're actually thinking strategically and looking to actually create a website that creates a more holistic and just easy user experience. Generally speaking, it is better to overcomplicate things, or at least think through those things. You can say, hey, I just want to keep it simple. Cool. At least we thought about it. And then we just said, okay, moving on. Like, let's keep it simple, right? Next thing, Shopify is very powerful. Very, very powerful platform. And so there are a lot of things that people say you cannot do. There's a lot of people that say, oh, Shopify is really bad at X. It's really bad at Y. I think that's not necessarily the case. You just need to understand how to manipulate or bend the platform to your needs, right? So I've heard so many times people walk into my office, or, we have a phone call and they're like, yeah, so-and-so told me this is not possible, or like Shopify is bad at that. And I'm like, really? That's interesting. Look what we just built. It does exactly what they're talking about. So anyway, I thought that was like a very interesting thing that happens day to day on the job. And so basically, like going back to this example over here, right? Like we were able to create this custom experience, and like, yeah, this is definitely not out of the box, but we know how to manipulate the platform to do what we would like it to do. As an example, like one of these starter kits, right? We were like having trouble. Hey, how do we price these? How do we make sure they're able to pick the different shaker cups, and how does that exactly work? And there's too many variations of that. There's too many colors. We basically have some Shopify limitations, but then we thought to ourselves, well, we don't really need to do that. We could just combine the products together, and we'll just use a discount code that automatically applies when they add this to cart, right? Making it $19.99 versus normally it would be like a $23 or $24.99. So anyway, that's just an example of like, hey, like it's a super powerful tool. You just need to know what pieces need to go where in order to leverage the platform to its highest capability. I actually think 8 figures is kind of like the threshold of Shopify, but I've also seen like 9-figure companies and beyond actually leverage it. And that's because they hire people like us and they say like, hey, I have this problem. I'm not really sure how to solve it. I'd like to use Shopify, but I'm not sure it's possible. And it's like, hey, anything is really possible. There's only like a small exception to that rule. Some of the checkout stuff in Shopify is a bit locked down nowadays. Even then, if you're on Plus, like the world is basically your oyster. And that was kind of like my lesson 3, Shopify is powerful. And that was kind of tied into my lesson 4, which is like, basically people have this idea that like, oh, these things they can't happen in this platform. It's like, yeah, they can. You just have to hire someone that has like almost a decade of experience on the tool. And then really all these things and all these issues and all these like technical hurdles that you haven't been able to overcome. And now you can do that, right? With someone that actually knows what they're doing. Again, these are all kind of iterated lessons. I feel like it's probably becoming clear is like all these things kind of are tied together. And it's like when you have those difficult problems or challenges within the platform, it's like doing those workarounds, you kind of have to use a lot of brain power to figure that out. And then also figure out how to get that carried out in a very efficient way. It's like, yeah, we could do that this way, but then it would take us a ton of time to maintain the data. Okay, let's not do that. What else can we do? So you kind of have to go through that whole thought process in order to actually get the project done and basically leave it in a state where the client can actually manage the website after the fact. So that all being said, something that we've noticed too is that this is lesson number 5, just keeping track of things here, that design and development is iterative. It's not linear. People come into my office all the time and say, hey, this is my budget. I want to spend $5,000. Will that get me a website? It's like, maybe. I don't really know. And they're like, well, if I lay out absolutely everything for you, can't you just tell me the exact amount would be? And I'm like, not really, because a lot of time we set out on a project, and this happens in all of our lives. This should be no shock to anybody, is that we have a plan, right? Okay, my plan is to get my promotion in a year from now, and then 3 years from now, I'm going to be partner, and then 5 years from now, I'm going to be director. It's like, well, that doesn't necessarily always go to plan. Maybe it took me a longer time to get from like the individual contributor role, like a, employee, to become a manager, to become a boss, and then become a director and things of that nature, right? So instead of taking me 1 year as an employee, maybe it takes me 3. Well, then I need to wake up and say, okay, my plan now it needs to be extended. Maybe now I think, okay, I need to be a manager instead of for 2 years. I need to be that for like 5. So as we progress together on these projects, things alter, they change, they adjust, right? I see something and I'm like, I don't really like that. Let's just completely scrap that. Let's redo that section. It's like, okay, that's not included in the scope, but we do that anyway because it's like, well, we want the outcome to be exactly what the customer wants. That also means like the budget and how we approach things, you need to be a lot more flexible. We need a little bit of room in the budget. So when we do a lot of our quoting, we basically say, hey, like that's like 10 to 15,000 or like that. That's 15 to 25. And it concerns customers, right? They're like, wait a second. You're telling me I can spend 15, but I could spend up to 25. There is a little of like, they're not really sure how they feel about that, right? They're used to people just naming a number and that's it. And it's like, in today's world, how things actually operate is very iterative and very like agile. You guys ever heard the agile project methodology? I mean, it's basically like over time, we just keep making things better. And that's generally how the projects run as well. If we see something, we think it's a major problem, we address it. And we create room and budget for that in the beginning because we don't want to be in a situation where it's like, hey, well, that's kind of out of scope and we need to do a change order. And it creates all this like extra bureaucracy, which again, is not necessarily a bad thing at times, but in the beginning, it's like, we want to create that room in the beginning so that things do come up, we can kind of just eat those and just move on. No budget, no additional budget or money required. We'll just keep crushing it, right? Awesome. Clients love that. The other thing that we noticed, this is lesson number 6. Sorry, I just hit my microphone. Lesson number 6 is basically clients, and I'm kind of fitting in this bucket as well. I often don't know what I need, and clients are the same way. We don't know what we want until we see what we have, right? So we had this occur the other day where it's like, hey, like just throw this on a design and let me see how it goes, right? And basically what happens is when we throw it in and they're like, that's not it at all. Like that's off, or like, hey, we need to adjust these 5 sections. And it's like, we can't actually get to that point unless we produce something. And that is on the development side and the design side. We've had this happen a lot where it's like, nah, that's not exactly what I wanted. I actually wanted this and that. And it's like, there is a level of like realignment that needs to occur. And like, okay, let's talk about that. How does that look for you? Why isn't that working? And it's more of like a curious conversation, and it's totally fine. It's just recognition of that fact as I walk into a project that I don't know exactly what I need. And I'm kind of the same way where I'm like, hey, this is kind of what I'm looking for. This is my vision. Can you just go figure it out? And then they're going to bring it back to me. I'm going to say, oh, no, we need to do this, and that. We're talking about a bit of resource planning today. And I say, hey, these are kind of the key data points I want. I don't know how this is going to look or how this is supposed to be, but this is what I need, right? And it's like, they're probably going to come back with something a little bit different, and that's okay. Probably have to make tweaks. I'm going to say, no, it's not exactly what I wanted, and need to make this adjustment here and that adjustment there. So ultimately, that is just something that we all need to understand. And we deal with a lot of this in the design phase. We also deal with some of this in the build phase as well. It's like, oh gosh, like the way it was built, it's like, it looks like our design, but when we see it on the website, it looks a little bit different. It's like, yeah, that's what happens, right? It's like, okay, we want to tweak that font a little bit or make that a little bit smaller. So there's a bit of like dialing and revisioning and like adjustments that are going on throughout the life of the project. So yeah, just something to keep in mind as you're walking into this. It's like, just know that you're likely going to change your mind when you see the first output. You might even change your mind after you see the second or third. It kind of just depends on how things go. We do our best to stay aligned and stay on the same page and communicate and get all those requirements up front. But even then, it's like there's still some revisions. There's still some feedback that need to be had. Other thing with Shopify, right? They have Shopify themes, which are kind of like your base. And then we also have something called third-party applications. That basically is there to help you save time. Hey, I want to do this complicated discount. Shopify doesn't offer it out of the box. You go to the App Store. So you kind of go out here, you're like, all right, apps. Sorry about that. Apps.shopify.com. You go out here and you kind of find an app. We talked about this in the previous video about the complex projects and things of that nature. And so the thing about these, they're fast, they're quick, and they're cheap. What does that mean? That typically means that it's not going to look the best, and it's not going to be like look completely integrated with your website. And sometimes can actually create like more complexity and create like a lot of like bogging down your website versus, something more clean that's more native to Shopify. So just keep in mind a word of caution. Third-party apps are fantastic. If you have like a lower budget, you're just startup and you kind of just want to get stuff done, they can work. Just know that they're not going to be as intuitive, or like they're not going to do exactly what you want. And where possible, we're saying, hey, stay away from that. Let's do something native. And yeah, native costs a little bit more money. Doing that customizations, it costs a little bit more, but at the same time, it's like, well, do you want a great user experience or just like an okay user experience? It kind of depends on where the business is at in their lifetime, or they're like where they're at in the life of the company. If you're brand new, it's like, yeah, we recommend third-party apps all day. If you're a little bit older, you got some revenue, you got your, a business that's done pretty well in the past few years. Okay, let's figure something out that like looks a little bit more clean and creates a better user experience. Lesson number 8, I thought there was one more in here, but lesson number 8, Metafields are so powerful on Shopify now. This is basically just custom information about the product, like dimensions, delivery times, lead times, things of that nature. It is so powerful nowadays. Like, it's such a good tool for us to use. And it basically makes it easy for the store owner or the person maintaining the store, sometimes that's us, going in there and just typing in some information. And then it just shows up in the proper way on the screen. They're amazing. They're fantastic. It basically allows you to have like different dimensions by product, different delivery times by product. It allows you to display that differently to a customer. Think of really anything, like there's a bunch of different custom information. Basically, if it's not a title, description, and price, or some sort of product variation, it's additional information about the product that may vary from product to product. We would consider that like a metafield or custom information. So I feel like there was one more in there. I think just in general, it's like, keep your expectations at like, hey, I'm embarking on a journey with a person, developer, agency, whoever that is. And like that journey and that relationship is going to change over time, and give it a little bit of grace. Like, think, okay, yeah, my budget's like 3. They told me 3 to 5. And it's like, we have to manage this together. It's like, hey, we're at 3. What do you think? This is where we're at. Do we need to kind of just like dial things in and move super fast? If we go at this pace, we might be at 9,000, right? Is that okay? Right? So it's like, I feel like the expectations of time and the expectations of budget and like the actual output do change a little bit. And it's like, it kind of depends on how far we've come. If we feel like we're progressing really well, it's like, cool, we're gonna be on budget, we're gonna be on time, this is great. But it's like, at some point we need to check ourselves, right? In the middle of the project. This would probably be like lesson 9. Check yourself in the middle of the project. We do this internally where it's like, hey, 25%, where are we? 50%, what's going on, right? And it's like measuring the progress and making sure that the value is matching up with the budget that we've originally agreed upon. And again, sometimes a hard conversation has to be had. Hey, we're at like 30%. And like we've already spent about 50% of the budget or something like this, right? We see this trending a little bit higher. Is that going to be a problem or not, right? And this is reality. I think, some agency owners might be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. It's like, hey, this is just what happens. This is just facts after doing so many of these projects. But yeah, so if you want to actually see what some of the more complex projects that we've done, actually check out the video up here, over there somewhere. And you can actually see it where I break down these sorts of projects that can be done on Shopify, the level of complexity, what you can expect, and what makes certain projects harder than others. It has been a pleasure today. It's been fun. It's been great. Check us out, www.dextech.com. We got you covered when it comes to Shopify, and I will talk to you later. Peace out.